When a billionaire invited his maid's mother to a friendly chess game, he believed he was merely being courteous. He didn't in one afternoon expect to be humiliated twice and gain more life experience than he had for years. Gloria Bennett never brought much. The same weekend bag, there was a folded newspaper crossword in the side pocket of the black leather purse she had been carrying for 20 years. She never liked to stay too long, especially when it wasn't in someone else's world. From Newark to Old Saybrook, the Amtrak had been as quiet as she liked on that Saturday morning. As the trees slid by, she drank coffee from looking through an old mystery book and a dented thermos. Patrice, her daughter, had invited her to come for weeks. Gloria insisted that she was all right at home, but all right can also mean lonely. And she eventually gave in because the quiet in her flat had begun to encroach. At the station, Latrice greeted her with Gloria, couldn't pretend she didn't miss her after receiving such a strong hug. They discussed every topic and nothing on. How the neighbor's son was caught snooping into someone's backyard, how the traffic on I-95 hadn't been to bad pool. She refused to see a doctor despite the fact that her knees had been acting up. The estate appeared as Gloria was about to was discussing the cancellation of the bingo night at her church. She stopped speaking. She remarked, "You didn't tell me it was this kind of place." Latrice chuckled briefly while glancing at the lengthy driveway. Bordered by white hydrangeas and hedges that had been trimmed, it didn't seem to matter to me. It was a huge, if unobtrusive, brick and ivy house. With thick white columns and tall windows, it appeared to be the kind of house where people wiped their shoes twice, even if they were already clean, and where people whispered instead of talking tidy. Everything inside had a subtle scent of old paper and lemon polish, the type of cleaning that has been done by someone else. Gloria remained silent while Latrice bustled about, describing the regulations. The Persian rug should not be walked on. The old mirror in the hallway should not be touched. Avoid posing inquiries regarding the upstairs in a locked room. He's not at home at the moment, Latrice continued. However, simply be courteous if he enters. Say hi. Do not be concerned. He doesn't talk to anyone. Gloria gave a nod. I've never had a problem being polite. Attracted by the sunlight streaming across the sunroom, she put her bag down close to the kitchen door and wandered inside. The floor's tiles. She noticed the chessboard there. It was composed of dark squares of ivory and walnut with carved details that appeared heavy and hand-polished. A game is already being developed. Mid-attack, White's queen. Gloria's head cocked. The job wasn't very good. Someone had exposed themselves. "You play," the voice said. "You play." Like someone who didn't need to raise it to be heard, she was precise, calm, and fluid. She turned to see a tall man wearing pressed slacks and a cream sweater. Charles Davenport resembled his home exactly. Sophisticated, icy, and slightly too flawless. "I used to," Gloria said. Stated, he glanced back at her after glancing at the board. "Are you up for a game?" Gloria grinned. "Of course, why not?" Latrice had just come in carrying a tray of folded linen, almost dropped it. She began, Mr. Davenport, but he waved her away. It was only a game, Latrice." Gloria sank gently into the seat. That's what everyone says. None of them realized. Yet that this would be more than a game. The chair was more cozy. More than Gloria anticipated. "No, it's too upright to be soft, but firm enough that told you it cost a lot." She waited while adjusting her sleeves and looking at the pieces. Charles was seated opposite her. He touched the white bishop with care, as if it were a delicate museum object. He looked at the board, then measured something in her face while looking up at her. He said, "I'll play white," more as a declaration rather than a query. Gloria remained motionless. "Please be my guest." Latrice stood close by, uncertain about whether to stay or go. Charles, who is typically very private, was erratic at his best days. It was like watching a glass balance on the edge when she saw her mother seated across from him at that elegant table. Of a counter. Steady. But how much time? Charles was the first to move. 2e4. Pawn. Gloria muttered, mostly to herself, standard opening. "Do you have a favorite look?" His eyes remained fixed on the board. "Before I call it style, I prefer to see what I'm dealing with. Charles gave a small smile. It's not teasing. Laughter, perhaps. He made another move. Fast, tidy, and effective. Gloria countered with her own response. Night out, then, Bishop. She didn't hurry. By the 10th move, she had witnessed too many people play too quickly to appear intelligent. He reclined. You're at ease. Playing irate wouldn't make sense. One more step. One more pause. Charles remarked, You know, my father taught me when I was 8 years old. Believed that playing chess would teach self-control, discipline, and foresight. Did it? Gloria inquired. No, he said. However, I improved enough to win a few country club competitions. She grinned. Have you ever performed at Wahik Park? Or knew? That's where I found out. Boys with plastic arrived from all over the town, boards, as well as milk. Crates for seating. I lost my first 10 games. Then I came to a stop. Losing. Charles took a step forward, then stopped. I was mistaken about you. You were thinking, which is why. He arched an eyebrow. Gloria's tone grew softer. You saw me enter. An elderly woman wearing a cardigan over a church dress, a little slow on the knees. You thought I would make you laugh. You sent me back to the kitchen after a few moves. Charles only blinked once. Do you think that of me? No, that's how you perceive me. For a long moment, the room was silent. Charles then made a sound between a cough and a laugh. All right, Latrice. Peeked in from the corridor, her lips pressed together. She was prepared to take over. If they were still playing and the board remained between them, even if things went in a different direction. Charles modified his queen. It's just Gloria, and sharpness isn't age-bound. You're sharp, Mrs. Bennet. The pace quickened. Charles accelerated in an attempt to disrupt her rhythm. Gloria remained steady and slow. Before he had finished setting his traps, he noticed them. He attempted to use a rook and queen to enclose her. She used a knight to sneak out, and completely changed his setup. He gave his chin a scratch. This is embarrassing. Her head was cocked. This is chess, not chess. Charles, move after move, he started breathing more forcefully through his nose. Gloria's pieces were carefully and neatly consuming the board, as if she won square at a time. They were wiping a counter. His right side rook was trapped, and his bishop was gone. She gave up a pawn. To entice his monarch, and it was successful, she said quietly, as if she were saying, it takes more than money and books to understand the board. A teacher gently correcting a pupil. His lips were tight, and his brow furrowed as he leaned back. Check, she said. He let out a sigh. I see it. Another step. Checkmate. Charles looked at the board and blinked twice, as if he had miscounted. However, it was correct. There was nowhere for his king left to go. Unaware that she was holding her breath, Latrice released it. Slowly, Charles shook his head. Amazing. Gloria's hands were folded in her lap. When you've spent your entire life playing the long game, that's what happens. This time he laughed honestly. After lunch, would you stay for a rematch? I have time, she said, gazing out the window at the garden outside. Do you? However, there were other things changing in that house besides time. The room was filled with respect, and it wasn't going to any place. It was a quiet, almost uncomfortable lunch. Charles provided roasted. The private chef hardly looked at them as he plated the chicken, asparagus, and wild rice. Latrice took a seat with them, mostly in silence, as she watched her mother, as if she were at a church feast, handle a cloth serviette. Gloria wasn't attempting to win over anyone. All she was feeling was hunger. With Charles, however, continued to stare at her, with curiosity rather than rudeness, as if he was still attempting to figure out how a person like her had just cleaned the board. When he finally said, I've never lost that fast, he speared a bit of asparagus more forcefully than was required. Gloria's eyebrow went up. If you play the same way, you will again. That almost choked Latrice on her water. Instead of his usual tight, courteous smile for guests, Charles looked at her and grinned. Something more relaxed. You enjoy, don't? You tell the truth? Not always, but I believe that people deserve it when they ask for it. He gave a nod, carefully. Then he focused on the view of the garden. My grandfather owned this place. He thought that if a man he was not good at life, and he was not good at chess. Gloria dabbed at her mouth's corner. Many men confuse control with knowledge. That lingered long enough to make even the birds outside seem more subdued. Following lunch, they went back to the sunroom. Reset on the same board. Charles slightly rolled up his sleeves. In some ways, Gloria felt as though she belonged there now, and she sat as comfortably as before. "I'll go with black this time," he said. "Make yourself comfortable." The initial movements were swift: pawn standard, bishop, and knight. Charles was now trying to focus more and get rid of whatever had taken him by surprise in the first game. He was observing her hands, following her gaze, and questioning each. She touched something. Gloria said, "You're studying me without raising." Her gaze trying, she put her knight down and looked at him, saying, "To read your rhythm. Chess is not jazz. You're not a rhythm reader. You read patience." He gave a grunt. By move 15, Charles says, "That's what I'm doing wrong then." I'd taken one of her rooks, but it was too expensive. Gloria was stealthily creeping in after. He had opened his center. Like soldiers with a strategy, she advances her pawns. Latrice spoke softly to the butler as she stood close to the kitchen door. "He's attempting too hard," the butler said without replying. However, he was also observing. Charles attempted to corner her queen, putting both bishops forward in a dangerous arrangement. Gloria was slow. Taking a pawn, she rolled it between her fingers, then set it down firmly.
Oh.
She owned the entire left side of the board. Right now. "Do you ever compete?" Charles inquired, obviously attempting to delay. Gloria trembled her head. "I didn't have time. Work bills, kids. However, I used to play 3 games simultaneously on folding chairs in the park. Make the final one. Win one and draw one. Guy cry." He laughed, but it was short-lived. Her control over the board was growing. He was aware that his moves were becoming fewer and fewer. "This bothers me," he stated. "What?" Gloria looked into his eyes, losing again. "Remember, it's just a game." He looked at her for a moment before slowly nodding, but it was too late. After 3 more moves, his king was once more captured, but pinned in a way that felt intimate rather than encircled by flair, silent and unavoidable. "Checkmate," she said. Charles reclined. This time, there was no denial, no looking for a missed. Root on the board. He sat motionless, his mouth's corners turned up a little. "Gloria, you're something else." She slowly got to her feet, stretching her back. "I simply have the ability to plan ahead." Charles was losing more than just chess games, though. Was starting to lose the world he had constructed around himself. By the time Charles reset the clock, the sun had moved. Bored. Now. The window's golden light poured obliquely across the tiles, creating lengthy shadows over the squares. However, took her time. She continued to sit quietly while smoothing her skirt while resettling herself in the chair. "Third time's the charm," she questioned in a steady voice. Charles laughed. However, there was a slight glimmer of annoyance behind his eyes. Being on the defensive wasn't something he was used to. Not right now, not in life, not at work, and most. Certainly not at home. "I must demonstrate that I am not entirely hopeless," he said, positioning the parts a bit harder than was required. "Would you please bring us some coffee, Latrice?" Latrice paused. Of course, sir." She looked into her mother's eyes as she walked out of the room. Gloria shook her head in the slightest way. Simply "don't worry" is sufficient. "I'm all right." Charles adopted a new strategy this time. Early on, he played aggressively, forcing conflicts in the middle of the board by pushing his pawns forward. Gloria made the adjustment without panic, but with the cool flexibility that comes from enduring more adversity than a bishop's advancement. "Have you ever played chess at a fast pace?" His gaze was fixed on the board as he asked. "In the park, time is everything." "You have?" He attempted to corner her knight, but that didn't mean it was worth it. She imprisoned the bishop of his queen. Rather, Charles put his elbows on the table and leaned forward. "You don't really slow down, do you?" Gloria spoke quietly. "When life doesn't give you second chances, you learn that," Latrice came back with. 2 coffee cups. Charles didn't look up at all. Alternatively, Gloria, As if it were part of her plan, she took a sip and thanked her daughter gently. Charles was too quick and lost to Gloria was already pushing her pawns to the far side when the knight attempted to recover with a long castle. She wasn't merely defending, she was directing the entire game towards her rhythm and establishing the mood. While you play, you're quiet, Charles whispered. He gave me a slight smile, which I think aloud in my mind. That's a contradiction. Boredom and wealth go hand in hand. He blinked, obviously not anticipating that. Gloria simply put a rook in the proper spot without grinning or winking. Had to be. After a moment, he said, I'm not bored. No, she said, taking a sip. Her coffee once more. So why did you invite a complete stranger to play chess? Neither of them anticipated how hard that landed. There was a long pause. Charles glanced at the board below. His king was confined. Once more, his knight is unimportant, and his rook is cornered. You're in charge of the board, he acknowledged. She gave him a look. She saw no victory. It has nothing to do with control. Knowing when to move is key. Charles gazed at her, asking when she should wait. You had the potential to be a grandmaster. I might have been a many things, she uttered. Latrice stood listening in the corridor. Her mother had never spoken to her like this previously. Reserved, not courteous to blend in, but truthful, straightforward, and still gracious, somehow. Gloria said again, quietly, checkmate. Charles remained silent. After examining the pieces, he took a deep breath and slowly leaned back in his chair. That's how you learned to play? He inquired. Gloria appeared to be observing a memory drifts across the window. My husband used to work nights years ago. I used to sit at the kitchen table with a board from Goodwill and an old chess book after the kids went to bed. I would play both sides until I noticed something different. I would occasionally play until dawn. Charles observed her as if he had never actually seen her previously. Did you do that by yourself? The majority of things? Indeed. He sat motionless. The weight of that sentence almost made me uneasy. However, Latrice spoke up before they could both continue. And the next thing she said would tip the scales once more. Latrice took a slow step forward while holding on to the linen. She had been trembling as she twisted the towel in her hands. Mister, I need to rest, she said cautiously. Davenport. She hasn't even properly put her bag down since she boarded the train this morning. Gloria gave her a glance. Not very sharp, but serene and unambiguous. I'm all right, sweetie. All he needs is someone to push him. That's all. Charles got out of the chess game. Turned to Latrice at the table. It's true, you know. It's a challenge. Is exactly what I need. He didn't sound defensive. If anything, it sounded as though a small crack had appeared inside of him. I hang out with people who tell too much. Even when I know I'm wrong, I still believe I'm right. Latrice remained silent. She appeared worn out from juggling her work and her mother, of attempting to navigate the gap between unintended worlds. Just said she said. Added in a quiet manner. People aren't typically invited to play chess and converse over coffee. Here, especially not those who hung in the air like a thick curtain, like my mother. Charles glanced at her, and for once there was no courteous distance in his gaze. He turned back to Gloria and said, and maybe that's the problem. Would you think about tomorrow? Will you join me for lunch? Only lunch? Don't play chess unless you want to. The company would be enjoyable. Gloria did some studying him, not the proposal. The man's voice, posture, and manner of maintaining, he looked away as if he was not accustomed to making requests. She took a while to respond. Is chess at issue here? She inquired. Or are you attempting to make yourself better? The question appeared to surprise Charles, but he did not steer clear of it. Perhaps both. Gloria slowly nodded without saying yes. Simply taking him in, as if she had all the time in the world without saying no. Afterwards, later that night, Gloria sat. On the edge of the bed in the tiny guest room Latrice had set up and took off her footwear. Her hip was stiff, and her feet hurt. However, something concerning that game, those games, had brought back a long-forgotten aspect of her. When Latrice entered, she was still sat next to her, wearing her work shoes. Are you sure you're all right? Quietly, she inquired. Gloria grinned without glancing. At her, I'm exhausted. Are you okay?" They both chuckled. However, the laughter subsided. Quick, Latrice paused before saying, In the 4 years that I've worked for him, he has never spoken to me more than 10 words. Within a day, now that you're in, he's all talkative and thoughtful. It makes me wonder, are you wondering if I'm not doing enough, or if I might not be perceived as you are?" Gloria turned and grasped the hand of her daughter. "The way you carry yourself, baby yourself each day, the things you manage to keep together on your own. That individual couldn't perform half of your tasks." Latrice blinked away unexpected tears. "Mom, it's just weird to see you in his home in that manner, as if you were more at home there than I ever was." Gloria reclined, and the mattress made a creaking sound. A little below her. "I had no place there. I simply didn't request authorization." Charles was waiting at the bottom of the stairs the following morning, holding 2 cups of coffee, one black, one with just the ideal quantity of milk. As Gloria saw him, she blinked. "I thought you might enjoy spending some time in the garden today. No games, just some quiet and a bench." She arched an eyebrow. "You're pursuing me? Approximately now? Perhaps all I want to know is where the next checkmate will come from." However, neither of them anticipated how the subsequent discussion in the silence of that garden would start to disclose the realities they had both been trying to avoid. The scent of fresh grass and rosemary wafted through the garden. Although it wasn't noisy, it wasn't quiet either. Breeze rustled the leaves, birds sang, and somewhere a sprinkler hissed out of view. Gloria followed Charles over to a wooden bench by a stone fountain. The water was flowing, as if it had nowhere else to go, slowly. Gloria sat down, got her coffee, and took a look around. "It's a good place to reflect," Charles said, easing into the other. "That's why I came out here." The benches sighed. Silence leaves most people unsure of what to do. She took a sip of her drink. The majority of people fear it. They sat for a minute or two in that same silence. Not forced, not awkward, simply motionless. Charles cleared his throat. "It's been nearly 7 years since I moved into this house by myself. My wife died. Surgical complications. It was meant to be ordinary." Gloria turned to face him, not out of sympathy, but with comprehension. She claimed that she lost her husband to a stroke. In the kitchen, he was brewing coffee. Let the mug fall, and he was gone by the time I arrived. Charles blinked slowly. That quickly? The wind pulled at the leaves in that final. The fountain continued to flow. Neither of them made an effort to fill the silence immediately. "Last," Charles said, "I stayed busy after she died. I laid to rest myself in fundraising, estate work, and situations where I was asked to do something. However, there was always a space, a gap that I didn't understand how to fill." Gloria gave a nod. "Grief is like a drawer that is locked. It cannot be forced. You know it's there, but it's open. Every time the floor cracks, you can hear it." As if she had just said something, he glanced at her, had no idea how to express it. "Do you ever consider getting married again?" he inquired. Gloria laughed. "At my age? All I want is peace, good shoes, and perhaps a good book every now and then." Charles grinned, sincere. "All right." She turned a little in his direction. "Do you ever question whether the version of you that others see isn't the entire image?" "Daily. I was Latrice's mother, or the quiet one for years, woman who assists in Sunday school. However, I was also a woman who corrected lawyers on the court and played chess on milk crates. It's the park and their openings." He chuckled. "I would pay to watch that." "You did it already." She made fun of it. Leaning back, he gazed up at the sky. "The amusing thing is that you visited your daughter here, but I feel like you've done more for this house in just 2 days than in 2 years. I have." Gloria gave him a direct look. "I'm not performing for it." Which is why, sat up, his eyes narrowing, thoughtful, but not insulted. "Are you attempting to instruct me?" "Just when you're prepared to learn." They both grinned. Latrice watched through the window from beyond the hedges. They were visible to her, obviously. On a garden bench. 2 strangers who didn't belong together are becoming like old friends. "Do you see them?" Quietly, the butler spoke from behind her. Latrice leaped. Yes, I do see them. The man's been more subdued than normal lately. It could be beneficial to him. Latrice remained silent. Oh, she didn't have a safe place and was overthinking. To position them, Charles pointed to the chessboard that was still in the sunroom outside. You believe that I'll ever defeated you? If you continue to act like the person you believe me to be. He gave a slow nod, allowing that to sink in. They took a seat. There until the air cooled enough to remind them that the day was drifting and the sun passed through the hedges. Away. But those moments weren't just transforming Charles. Latrice was starting to confront her own truth, which she had not yet spoken aloud. By the middle of the week, the house felt quite the same. No one spoke directly and it wasn't noisy, but there were glances, prolonged looks, and brief pauses in speech when Gloria went into a room. The groundskeepers, the kitchen crew, and even the estate manager, Mrs. Pennington, who only spoke in clipped sentences, had begun to be somewhat tight-lipped in their politeness, respectful on the outside, contemptuous on the inside. Latrice was the first to notice. It was in the way people gave her mother smiles without looking at her, the manner in which discussions became less frequent around her, and above all, in the way the atmosphere changed when the regular guests of the estate showed up. Thursday afternoon brought one of those guests, a family friend named Elise Van. Dorn has a name that showed up in a silver Jaguar and was depicted on donor walls and museum plaques. She wore a scarf that seemed to have never come into contact with dust and a fitted beige suit. Charles welcomed her with, on the front steps, a gentle embrace. Gloria sipped tea in the sunroom while sitting close to the window and watching the chessboard before her. Latrice meticulously swept the bookshelves behind her mother, quiet and methodical. Are you certain about this? Latrice muttered the question. Gloria didn't raise her head. Yes, regarding what? Being like this in full view? Gloria spoke in a composed tone. If sirens were blaring behind me while I was playing in the park, I can watch from here while wearing a silk scarf. Charles took Elise into the sitting room inside. Gloria could hear the sound of high heels clicking on the hardwood floor and soft laughter. She's really unexpected, isn't she? Elise stated simply, loud enough to be heard by the nearby staff. Who? Charles inquired. Your visitor, the pearl-clad chess master. Very unusual, Charles said. She is superior to me. Yes, of course. I never. Imagine that you would spend your afternoons with someone from a well. Distinct background, it was there. Soft, elegantly attired, and dipped in sugar. The blade continued to cut, though. Charles took a while to answer. Then he stated, I haven't had lunch with anyone with as much depth as Gloria in years. Sitting with her could teach you something. Elise gave a soft laugh, the kind that people give when they are at a loss for words. Gloria returned to the sunroom, regarded her daughter. Is someone criticizing me? Latrice spoke in a tight tone. Perhaps. Gloria thoughtfully turned a porn in her hand. They're squandering their time, then? I have enough life experience to know judgment doesn't raise a child or pay the bills. Latrice squatted to retrieve a coaster from beneath the table. You ought to be exempt from proof. I'm not. For once, I'm being noticed, and some people don't like that. Later on, that Charles caught up to Gloria one day while they were strolling along the garden path. With his hands in his own garden, he appeared uneasy, his pockets uncertain of where he was. After a lengthy silence, he stated, Elise didn't mean anything by it. I am fully aware of what she meant, Gloria answered without faltering. Charles let out a sigh. I was at a loss for words. What you could say you did. Something there, he thought. At the grass below, individuals in my world have a way of forcing you to take a side without ever voicing it aloud. Gloria halted her stroll. Then it might be time for you to stop taking sides and take charge of your own destiny. He glanced at her, taken aback once more by her candor. Charles, I'm not a project, she stated. I'm not your afternoon diversion, a cause, or an experiment. I'm the type of person who can think of 4 moves ahead, and I anticipated this. Charles gave a nod. That was something I deserved. Gloria handed him a thorough examination. It's not all about whether you deserve it or not. Occasionally, people simply must be informed of the truth. However, the truth had a way of unnerving people. Gloria was also going to determine who is truly capable of handling it. Only a select few members of Charles' inner circle were to attend the dinner. Elise Van Dorn, a local judge, estate donors, and a man by the name of Dr. Lionel Strafford, a former Yale professor who enjoys his own voice and cigars. Gloria was not going to be there. She informed Latrice that she preferred to remain in her room with her slippers and a book. Charles, however, made a firm but courteous demand. "I want you to be there," he said, "that morning. It's more than just a meal. This time it's different," she said. Reluctantly, I agreed, not for the business, but rather because she was curious about what he intended by different. Only 8 people could be seated at the long dining room table that could accommodate 20 people that evening. Candles flickered. The cutlery was gleaming. The food was presented artistically on plates. Gloria had on, over her dress, was a navy blue jumper. Charles offered her a stylist earlier, but she turned him down. "I clean up okay," she had stated. And she did. It was quiet enough when dinner began. Gloria sat at the head, and Charles Elise on his right, and him on his left. Like decorations, the others dispersed along the sides. There was wine. Being courteous, talk drifted. The surface was broken by Dr. Strafford. "Thus, Charles," he said in a confident, round voice, "I am aware of the rumors. You've got a new chessboard secret weapon." Serving from the sideboard, Latrice froze. Charles grinned. "No secret. As someone who is a better player than me." Strafford raised an eyebrow at Gloria. "And could you tell me where you studied?" Gloria remained motionless. "In my kitchen?" It's from the 50-cent board Goodwill shop. Around the table, a few smiles tightened. Elise grabbed her. "Wine," as though he hadn't heard her. Strafford laughed. "However, you have undoubtedly competed at some point, such a talented woman. By now someone must have found you." Gloria continued to watch him. The word discovery is amusing. Only what you're already looking for is found by people like you. Charles moved around in his chair. Space seemed more intimate. Strafford's head cocked, attempting again. "It's simply out of the ordinary. Someone with your experience playing with such skill, really impressive." The atmosphere shifted. Not significantly, but sufficiently so that the tension settled like dust on a piece of glass. Gloria set down her fork. "I have 40 years of work experience, have raised children, lost a spouse, and maintaining my dignity when people pretended I didn't exist, and that's my origin." "That impressed you?" The Strafford blinked. "Well, she said you did. I didn't." "Mean that you intended to say that I didn't belong at this table. Additionally, I just wanted to let you know that I didn't request to be here. I received an invitation." Elise exonerated her. "Throat, don't get ahead of ourselves," Lionel was merely asking. "No," Charles cut in, his tone firm but calm. He was being patronizing. Everyone fell silent. Charles looked at Gloria. Gloria gave her a shake head. "Don't offer an apology for him. Allow others to be themselves." Strafford, he pushed back his chair a little. "I believe I've stayed too long, Gloria," No said, slowly getting to his feet. "I believe my patience is running out." She retreated from the table. She could already feel Latrice's hand on her shoulder. "Are you certain?" Latrice murmured. Gloria whispered, "I'm done entertaining for free." Calmly, she walked out of the room. No slamming, no drama. Doors, only elegance. The kind that makes people more uneasy than any yelling ever could. Charles remained in his chair. He kept staring at the vacant chair next to him. Charles knocked on the door of the guest room later that evening, after everyone had left and the lights had been turned down. Gloria halfway opened it. "I was surprised by that," he said. He hesitated. People rarely do. "You were correct." Sat there and allowed him to speak in that manner. "You gained knowledge while sitting there?" She answered, "That's a begin." Charles's head dropped. She grinned and said, "I'm not sure I belong in your world either." Perhaps neither of us is the point. No longer need to request permission. Gloria, however, wasn't simply leaving a table. She was establishing one for herself. And an unexpected person was going to take a seat. The sky was clear on Saturday morning, and there was a faint scent of early the grass is still covered in dew. Gloria sat by herself in the garden, sporting a pair of sunglasses and her husband's old wind cheater, walking shoes that have faded. A tiny stone table held a chessboard in front of her. Pieces in the middle of the game. Black's rook is threatened by a white bishop. Oh, she wasn't pretending to be someone, simply testing results and running scenarios. She enjoyed the feel of the breeze. Face Latrice quietly emerged, carrying a tray of toast and fruit. She took a seat next to her mom and perched on the edge of the bench. "You're not returning inside?" she inquired. Gloria didn't raise her head. "No," even Latrice grinned. "I'm sick of rooms with long tables and short minds." Despite this, she remained concerned. "Ever since you left the dinner, he has continued to pace. That walk was necessary for him." At that moment, this time, Charles entered the garden with a companion. Following him was a tall, roughly 16-year-old woman with sharp eyes that didn't shift or dart and short braids. She had on a sweatshirt and jeans. She had her hands buried deep in her pockets. "Gloria," said Charles, "it's Camille here. Her hometown is Bridgeport. The community center is where her mother works. For 2 years, she has been playing chess online. Years have passed, but she has never had a mentor." Gloria glanced at Charles, then at the girl. "What do you say? Instead of a glittering charity? With a gala and handshakes? I want to fund something. Please run a program for me. On the property or close by. You instruct. I'll support it. Life, strategy, chess, whatever you think is appropriate." Gloria gave Camille a look, gazing at the board, the girl at Gloria then. "Are you okay?" Gloria questioned her. Camille gave a shrug. "I don't lose a great deal." Gloria grinned. "Being good is not the same as that," tilting Camille her head. "Will you instruct me or not?" Gloria glanced up at Charles. "Why me? I have witnessed the consequences of sitting at a table. Individuals evolve. They either pay attention or become uneasy. Either manner, they develop." She turned to face Camille again. "Baby, did you get a ride home? I'll be picked up by my mother at 2. Next, take a seat. Let's check your knowledge." Across from her, Camille slid into the chair. With a slight smile, Latrice folded her arms and observed. Charles trailed a few paces behind, but remained silent, and simply he listened. At first, they played in silence. There was a pattern to Camille's opening. Gloria put her to the test to see how she thought not to win. She observed Camille's propensity for early, bold, but careless sacrifice. "You lack patience?" Gloria said. Camille scowled. "No, I simply dislike squandering time." That's the identical. They continued to play. Camille had halted by the 3rd round, making an effort to impress. She asked questions, made adjustments, and listened more. Hour later, Gloria got to her feet slowly, her knees cracking. "You will succeed, but only if you begin to treat this game with respect. Not a hammer, but a mirror." Camille blinked. "What does that signify?" "You desire to beat individuals. I'm curious about people." That's the distinction. Charles strolled slowly, with his hands in his pockets. He nodded at Camille and remarked, "She's brilliant." Gloria clarified that she has potential. She then faced Charles. Are you serious about this program?" "I have already had a conversation with the zoning board. The former Broad Street library is accessible. Some repairs are required. I'll take care of that. You deal with the children." Gloria returned to his seat on the bench. She didn't grin. She simply gazed at the board. At Camille, then. "What do you stand to gain?" Charles paused. Calm. Gloria gave a nod. "Don't micromanage me, then." "I wouldn't. Risk it." Latrice walked a short distance. Ahead. "Are you really doing this, Mama?" Looking at her daughter, Gloria's eyes that are sharp but gentle. "I believe I have already done so." However, this was more than just a program. Beginning, a door was opening here. Just outside, Gloria had the keys for the following generation. 3. A few months later, the old Broad Street library didn't appear to be much. There were still chips in the brick. Locations and the initial sign was slightly skewed, but the interior, that was distinct. The cracked tile floors and dusty shelves had vanished. Instead of them, there are 20 identical chessboards arranged like soldiers in formation, warm lighting, and sturdy tables. There were posters lining the walls, some with magnificent handwritten notes and others featuring well-known grandmasters. Consider the future. Consider more. Improve your thinking. That particular Monday afternoon, the space was complete. Teens from New Haven, Norwalk, and Bridgeport leaned over boards, frowning. A few others sat quietly, focused intently, while others made whispered movements. As usual, Gloria Bennett was seated in the corner. In addition to her gray cardigan 30 years ago, her husband gave her the same watch. She never raised her voice. Her presence was all she needed to hear. Camille sat opposite her, still confident, but now more incisive and purposeful. She had ceased hurrying through her plays and began construction blueprints. With a silent sense of pride, Gloria observed her. "Do you believe that you can defeat me today?" Gloria inquired. Camille grinned. I'm sure I can. Your first error is that." Both of them chuckled, but the game got very seriously. Students peered over there, shoulders around them. Camille's classmates, I now respect her because she learnt and adjusted, not because she was noisy. Charles came to visit once a week, never wearing a suit, and always carrying a box of pastries and a discreetly given check to Latrice, who was now in charge of payroll and books. He remarked, "You're doing more with this place than I ever did." During one of his visits, Gloria answered from a chipped mug of lukewarm tea, "That's because you waited." At the appropriate moment, he nodded. "I made the decision to stop waiting. There is a queue, most days outside," she said, "because word is spreading. Children want someone to observe not only their origins, but also how their minds function." Latrice grinned to herself as she observed from the doorway. She had started showing up early every day, making schedules, checking supplies, and keeping an eye on her mother. Flourish in a manner she had never witnessed before. Gloria would joke that I'm still your boss in this building. Additionally, I remain the someone who fixes the printer. Latrice always fired back. The area had turned into not just a room for chess, it developed into a community. After the games, the students stayed to discuss their thoughts, challenges, and lives. Tristan, a boy, began penning poems between games. After assisting in repairing a damaged light fixture, a girl named Joy wanted to learn about engineering. Gloria had no intention of doing any of that because she didn't possess one. She had simply appeared and continued to appear. A Thursday in the afternoon, Camille held a small trophy in front of the room. In Stamford, she had just won a regional competition, first location. In the rear, her mother was beaming. Gloria yelled for help. "Not only is Camille a strong player," she said in a composed yet forceful tone, "she's someone who paid attention when it was important. Games are won because of that." The room applauded. That's what creates life. Camille wiped her face with her sleeve and for once sat down again, unable to speak. Afterwards, Gloria sat by herself at the main table that evening after the students had left and the lights had been turned down, resetting the pieces one final time. Charles walked slowly towards her. "You appear worn out," he remarked. "I'm proud," he said, setting a folder next to her. There were papers inside. Approval of the foundation's status, plans for funding expansion, and even letters from local authorities. "You constructed something, Gloria, and more of it is desired." She shut the folder. "Then I'll require additional chairs." They sat silently for a long time. Two individuals who had given up trying but never anticipated their lives, becoming entangled to interpret it. "Have you ever considered what leaving a mark means?" Charles inquired. Gloria reclined. "Just if the mark isn't the issue. Only when it comes to what emerges from it," he grinned. "You ought to put that in writing," she said, tapping her temple. Just did. Outside, the street lights flickered on. Children carrying takeaway containers and backpacks passed by. Life proceeded as usual, but there was a new rhythm in that building. Slowly, steadily, purposeful. Like a game of chess played by someone who knew when to move and understood patience. Gloria never desired to be recognized. Impact was what she desired. Furthermore, using a borrowed board and an SID done both. Open door. Please share this story if it holds any significance for you. Gloria's story is not an exception. You simply don't always get into important rooms. Perhaps you are aware of someone like her. Perhaps you are similar to her. Be quick to accept an invitation. Take a seat and have fun.